Getting recorded? Okay, fine. So, welcome all for this second class on steam turbines. So, in the last class, we were discussing on the compounding. Actually, the compounding on steam turbines. This is where we stopped. So, we do have three types of compounding. One is pressure compounding, the velocity compounding, and pressure velocity compounding. Okay, let's go one by one. What is a pressure compounding? Say, so I do have. For example, let me write that. So red color represents the rotor, and I'm going to take three stages. Fine. I'm going to take three stages, and so I do have a stator. Fine. So red color represents the rotor. Let me call it as R, and pink represents the stator. So what happens in case of a pressure compounding? Say you have the, before that you have the corresponding nozzle. So usually you will have the first stage, you usually your guide vanes, usually that will be a nozzle. So if I try to plot the corresponding pressure and velocity on my diagram, how it varies. Fine. So if I take the pressure, what will happen? So let me use some blue color as the pressure. So if I take the pressure, let me draw some thin lines. Fine. For each one, I'm going to put the stage actually. Fine. I'm going to put the stage. So this is your rotor, right? And these are your stators. I can use the same thing for your other compounding also. Okay, fine. Now, what will happen if I have the pressure? So I'm going to take the pressure. So I do have the nozzle, which is also a stator, the first stage of the nozzle. Right? Fine. So what will happen? Your pressure, the pressure will be like this. So in the this is the velocity, lose the velocity. What will happen in your nozzle? The velocity will increase. Fine. Then in between it remains constant. Then in the expansion in the rotor, it comes to a particular value. Fine. Then it remains constant. Then in the corresponding stator, it goes to the particular value, same value. Then in the gap, it remains same. Then it gets converted. Then it remains same in the gap. Then once again its value increases. Fine. Then it remains same. Then it gets expanded in the stage in the rotor. Then it remains same and it comes out. So it comes out in this particular, so in this particular thing it comes out of the your exit. So this is your entry and this is your exit. What will happen to your pressure? So let me use a different color. Take, okay. brown color. So it enters at some pressure. So you should not confuse with velocity as the numbers. I'm just showing to a particular scale. So it enters at some pressure, fine. It enters at some pressure, and there is a drop in the pressure in the nozzle, fine. Then in the rotor is almost remains same. Then in the stator it's get reduced by another value, fine. Then it almost remains same in the rotor. Then it get reduced by in the stator. Then it almost remains same in case of a. So this is your exit. This is your entry. This is the pressure, and this is your velocity. See what we look at. What is pressure component? This is the pressure compounding. What is pressure compounding? Look at this. In the rotor, the pressure is almost remaining same. And in the rotor, the kinetic energy is getting absorbed. The kinetic energy is getting absorbed and the pressure remains constant. If I'm able to do this in any kind of a steam turbine, it is called as pressure compounding. It is called as pressure compounding. Now, if I come to a velocity compounding, let me write that what happens here. So, the rotor, that means instead of calling it as velocity, the kinetic energy is absorbed and the pressure remains same in case of the pressure component. Okay. Now, velocity component. I'm going to do the same thing. So what will happen here? A similar kind of, we do have a nozzle, a rotor, stator. Fine. Now I have the pressure. So what will happen to your pressure actually? The pressure enters. So it enters at some pressure and it expands, that is the pressure drops to a particular value in the nozzle and this value almost remains same throughout all the stages till the exit. So this is entry. This is what it happens in the to the pressure. What will happen to your velocity? Your velocity, it enters at some value and the kinetic energy increases to some value, fine. Then it remains same in the thing. Then the rotor, it gets expanded. Then throughout the stator, it remains same. Then the rotor, it gets expanded. Then it remains same to the next rotor. Then it gets expanded. Then it comes out. This is your entry. So this is about your velocity. The velocity component. What is it actually? The pressure. So in the rotor, the kinetic energy is absorbed, fine. But in the velocity component, what happened actually? the velocity used to be get converted, velocity used to get increased. But here what happens is the velocity remains same in rotor. It doesn't mean that it remains, say for example, if it is something like 5 meters per second, so there may be little bit of losses, few losses. 5 may become 4.9 or 4.8, but if you overall look at it, the velocity remains constant in the stator. And the velocity, kinetic energy is absorbed in the rotor, and the pressure remains same through all the stages. The pressure remains same through all the stages. This is about your velocity component. So pressure component and the velocity. So pressure component, what will happen? Your pressure is almost pressure remains same in one particular thing. One particular remains same in a stage. But here in the pressure remains same in all the stages. So that's the main difference between your pressure compounding and velocity compounding. And the kinetic energy, the stator of in between stages. So the velocity, kinetic energy will increase, then decrease, decrease in pressure compounding. But here is what's happening. The velocity remains constant in the stator. It gets absorbed in the rotor, and where the velocity is increasing, the velocity is increasing only in the first stage of the rotor, first stage of the stator, that is called a nozzle. In the nozzle, the velocity will increase. That is the one. This is about your velocity component. Now, the third one is actually, it is pressure and velocity component. Here, what is it actually? So, I do have, see what happens in case of your velocity compounding. So, I can write two times. So, if I try to write a set of rotors, say I have, so let one I have two rotors, let me write two rotors, fine. Then I have two more rotors, fine. So in between I have a stator, fine. In between I have a stator, in between I have a stator, and here I will be having a nozzle. One nozzle here and one nozzle here. So I do have the rotors, R are the rotors, and these are the stators, and these are the nozzles. I've not drawn to the scale, so this will be in construction wise, they will be to the particular scale actually. Now if I try to draw the corresponding pressure and the velocities, what happens here? Fine. So this is for each and every stage. So rotor, then stator, rotor, and stator, the nozzle in between, then I have a rotor, then I have the the last one, which is a rotor. Now let us draw the pressure. What happens to the pressure? See, the pressure, it enters at some. See, this is my pressure at the entry. So the pressure drops to a particular value in the first stage of the nozzle. Fine. Then it remains same till it enters the second nozzle. Then it drops further. Then it remains same till the exit. It remains same till the exit. So this is what happens in case of velocity component. We have seen the same thing here. So, but it's happening in two stages. Now, coming to the velocity. So, what happened to your velocity? The velocity, say for example, it enters at some value and it increases to a particular value in case of your first nozzle. Then it remains same. Then it expands in the first stage of the rotor. Then it almost remains same in the stator. Then it absorbs in the second stage of the rotor. Fine. Then it comes down, it remains same. Then it increases to a particular value in case of the second nozzle. Then it remains same. Then it gets absorbed in the first stage of the rotor. Then it remains same in case of the stator. Then the kinetic energy absorbs in the rotor. Then it exits. So this is what it happens to your velocity. So I do have the pressure and velocity. So pressure, this particular part, see I do have the pressure compounding. A particular part is pressure compounding. Then I have the partly pressure compounding will take place and partly. So this particular pressure velocity compounding is very advantageous. See, if you look at the velocity compounding, the pressure has to drop from very high, huge pressure to a particular lower pressure in the nozzle. But if I go for a pressure velocity compounding, if I go for 3 stages, so 3 stages of nozzle, that means first stage, there will be a particular drop to a particular, say for example, the steam enters at same 350 bar. So first stage of the nozzle, it may exit at some 270 or 280 bar or something, or 200 bar. Then that the second stage of the nozzle, it may exit at some 150 or 160 bar. Then by the time it comes to third stage, it may be at some few bar, 5 bar or 6 bar. So the advantage of expanding the steam in the stages of the nozzle, is very utilized properly in case of pressure velocity compounding. Okay. Fine. Now, we have seen yesterday a classification of your impulse and reaction turbines. So if you want, maybe you can just cross-check somewhere in any of the textbooks you may get it. You can just, maybe sometimes they can ask you to compare impulse and reaction turbines. Fine. So comparison of impulse and reaction steam turbine. I am speaking only with respect to steam turbines. Fine. So on one side I can have impulse turbine, that is, on other side I can have reaction turbine. Fine. So I'll try to discuss the major points. Not all the points I can discuss. So I can go through few points. The major points, let me try to discuss, and you can just check the same thing. You can verify from any of the textbooks. Okay. Now if I look at the impulse turbine, so it has fixed nozzles. So it has fixed nozzles from which the steam exits at high velocity. So this is the major requirement. So in case of impulse turbine, to the turbine first stage actually rotor, the steam should be at very high velocity. Right, or fixed well. Then if you look at the blade profile, if you look at the blade profile, it is symmetrical. The blade profile is symmetrical. Why? Because there are no pressure drop taking place in the rotor. Why this particular thing is required is because no pressure drop in rotor. Okay. Then maybe third point, when I speak of high velocity and high, this is I'm going to absorb the kinetic energy. As the kinetic energy is absorbed, so the efficiency, see, if it is able to, because of the symmetrical profile, the kinetic energy is absorbed properly. If it is absorbed, this is more efficient. If I'm able to convert properly, perfect absorption of it. Fine. And if you speak of tip clearances, that is means the gaps. So the fine tip clearances are, we need to have fine, see, very fine tip clearance may not be required here. Fine tip clearance may not be required because the profile itself is symmetrical. But in case of a reaction turbine, the tip clearance is very much required to avoid the pressure, because I am going to absorb, see, there is a pressure also getting absorbed and your kinetic energy is also getting absorbed. So both are getting absorbed in the rotor. But in case of a rotor, I am speaking of a rotor here, tip clearances are not that predominant one. Okay. And I can, if I take for some kind of a stage wise, if I go for an impulse turbine at lower stages, say already I told kinetic energy is absorbed, if it is properly, then it will be efficient. But if I go for low pressure stages, the efficiency might drop. So that's only for, maybe if I have stages, first stage, second stage, a third stage and fourth stage. Maybe the first two stages I can call it as high pressure stage, and the next two stages are called as low pressure stages. This is about your impulse turbine. I'm trying to give very simple 4 to 5 points. The rest of the things you can refer to any of the textbooks. If I come to reaction turbine, here the steam accelerates to the nozzle formed by the rotor. So here what will happen, even though the steam, see, the steam enters the, at that particular given velocity or something, I don't need any fixed nozzle here. So I don't need any stator vanes are just sufficient. I don't need any a nozzle. Okay. The second one, the blade profile, the blade profile or aerodynamic. That means aerodynamic. So to be very prefer, actually, I need to have some kind of a convergent passage at the inlet and it should have a divergent facet as the exit. Because why this particular thing is required? Because the reason is the pressure drop occurs partly in the rotor. Pressure drops, huh? And maybe if I speak of this particular thing, the efficiency of this particular thing is always lower because we are operating at low efficiency is lower, always lower. Then, if you speak of tip clearances, fine blade tip clearance are very much necessary due to, say, because what will happen, I should ensure that there are no pressure leakages. To be very precise, no leakages. I should ensure that there are no leakages. And see, there's a disadvantage of this. So if I have fine blade tips, damage, see, if any damage to the tip of the blade, may prove very costly. So if, so here, what we can call it as the seals. The seals are very much required to ensure proper working. And sometimes the seals has to be replaced. Seals has to be replaced periodically. Seals has to be replaced. The seals has to be replaced. So these are some 5 major points with respect to your impulse and reaction steam turbines. So this is about the very basic fundamentals which are really required in case of your. So before I get into the blades and all, actually, so if you are aware of it, the what type of cycle the steam turbine one, that also I will just touch upon, so it may help you. A simple Rankine cycle and a superrated Rankine cycle, what it looks like. So let me write the Rankine cycle, and usually we try to represent it using a corresponding TS diagram. Fine, TS or HS diagram, it looks something like this. Fine. So I do have this particular thing. This is my temperature, this is my entropy, and I can have a dome. Fine. This dome represents, I can have a dome like this. This dome represents your dry condition. So what will happen? Your pump will be, say for example, if I call this as 0.1, this as 0.2, this is where my pump will be operating. Then it will be going to a particular point, that is your 0.3. This is what happens in your boiler. Then I'm going to supply. So this is a curve. It's not a straight line. You have to. This is not a straight line. This is a curve. Right? This is a 3. And if at the end of your boiler, see, at the end of your boil, maybe the steam, if the condition of the steam is dry, I'll stop at 4. And this is the particular pressure. Suppose if my steam condition is superrated, so I will go beyond this point. See, I will go beyond this point it is not a straight line, it will be a curve. So I will go beyond this point to, let me call that as phi. Fine. So I will go to a point 5. Now, if I try to expand from the dry saturated steam, so I may expand to this particular point. So this will be my point 3. You can see this 3 is the wet steam. So if you try to draw the dryness fraction lines, see, suppose my dryness fraction lines will be going like this. Fine, just I am drawing 1 or 2 dryness fraction lines will be going to like that. So my steam will be wet actually. So why we go for superheated condition? If I go for a superheated condition, so I may end up with my steam will be much drier when I expand. Fine. When I expand, so if I call this as, so let me call this as 3. This is called as 3, maybe 3 soup, 3 sat. So if I go for saturated, it will be 3 sat. If I go for superheated, just take. Now, this particular 5 point, no, this is the 5. This, how can I determine what should be my superheated condition? So usually when we are trying to have a particular steam turbine, simply I can't tell, come on, we'll go to 1200 degrees Celsius. Say you have the pressure of maybe 300 or 350 bar, I go to 1200 degrees Celsius. But is it possible for me to go to 1200 Celsius? Because all the superheated condition, it requires good amount of energy need to be supplied to the steam. And all the superheated conditions, you know that we do have some kind of a device, what we usually we have studied in our elements of mechanical engineering or turbo, we call that as a superheater, where it is exactly placed at the exit of your boiler, maybe where the burnt gases will be going out, and the steam which are coming out, the steam which is coming out of your first stage or second stage regeneration, what I'm speaking, or will be the steam which is coming out of your regular boiler itself is taken to the superheater, then it is brought to your expansion or your turbine. So the point 4 to 3 or 5 to 3 soup or 4 to 3 sat, this is where you have the expansion, and this expansion is where you have the steam turbine, and this represents a particular pressure. See, this represents a particular pressure. So if I keep on increasing the pressure, what will happen? Say for example, if I want to increase to a particular pressure, see, say if I want to increase to a particular pressure like this, I'm trying to show in the dotted line. You can closely observe. So this particular temperature is almost remain the same. Look at this. This particular ring almost remain the same. Otherwise, simply I can go to a particular pressure. Simply I can go to a particular pressure. If I go to the particular pressure, I have to pay some penalty. What is the penalty? So from 1 instead of 2, if I go to 2 dash, then if I go to some 3 dash, 6 saturation, 6 superheated. So 3 dash, and this is 4 dash, and this is 5 dash. Look at this. What I have done, I have increased a particular pressure and I have put it in the boiler, and at the exit of the boiler, see, even though my saturation temperature has increased, if I want to expand to a particular dry saturated, say, particular thing, maybe 3 stage or 4 stage, if I try to maintain a particular temperature, same temperature as at my the earlier one, my steam at the exit 6 dash that if I look at it, so 6 sat superheated, if I look at it, my condition of the steam at the exit of your superheated steam at the exit of your expansion, it becomes wet. So this has to be optimized, and I have to ensure this is at the exit, that at the end of your expansion, this should be near dry. This expansion of the steam has to be near dry. That means my dryness fraction should be around 0.95 or 0.96 or whatever it may be. It should be more than 90% dry. Otherwise, what will happen? Your steam turbine blades will have a huge impact and they may get corroded. So to mitigate for this, what they try to do actually, you might have studied in your applied thermodynamics. What that is actually, they try to do what is called as regeneration or reheating. They try to call it as reheating. What we try to do in the case of a reheating, fine. So if I take for a reheating, this is your P, yes, and I do have a dome like this, fine. And I try to go to point 1 to 2. This is to point 3, and I will go to point 4. Fine. Then if I try to super it, I will go to a particular point. Let me call that as 5. Then what we try to do? We try to expand in the first stage high pressure turbine till it is dry. You might have solved some problems on this in your applied thermodynamics. Then what we do? We try to send it back to the boiler and heat it back to the same temperature, like this. Heat it back to the same temperature, fine, so that this becomes your 7, this is 6, this is 7, to same temperature. Then if I try to expand it, so I may reach a point, this is 8, I may reach a point. So this is much drier. If I go for, then this is called as reheating. How it is done, this reheating, what they do actually? So if I try to do a schematic, so what is this reheating means? So if suppose this is a boiler, I'll try to just show with a block diagram. If this is a boiler, fine, in the boiler, and above this I will be having what is called as a superator. Here I'll be having, in the boiler at the top, I will be having a superator. So from the boiler, what will happen? Your steam will go to, say, high pressure turbine. So we call it as HPT, high pressure turbine. It may be of 2 stages, and I'll be getting the work. Fine. So I'll be taking the steam from here, and it is passed in the superator, and then it is sent to your low pressure turbine, and this will go to, say, I do have the pump, and I have the condenser. This is how it works. Just I'm trying to explain you as simple as possible, writing a simple block diagram. This is how your reheating will work. And it's not that easy. What I'm showing, what I showed in this particular block diagram, no? Getting the high pressure steam from the maybe the steam from the HPT turbine and putting back in the steam turbine, it needs lot of, maybe the whole piping, what we call ducting and all, has to be properly insulated. So this heat loss What's the has to be minimum. I have to ensure that this heat loss is minimum, and whatever this particular, it has to be brought at a particular temperature to a particular low pressure turbine at a lower pressure at a higher temperature, lower pressure and higher temperature, so that I will be getting the much drier steam. So I will be getting the much drier. So it is steam after expansion is much drier. This is how the thing is achieved. Okay. So if you have any doubts, I think we can discuss or else I'll move on. Okay. If there are no doubts, I think we can move forward and we'll move towards the velocity triangles. So the basics of velocity triangles is very, very important. The basics of velocity triangles. So how many of you are aware of this meridional plane? See, if I have meridional plane, so if I have something like a rotor, so this is the side view of a rotor. If I write it like this, fine. This is a rotor, and that is the tip, and this is your hub actually. You have the hub and tip, and if I have blades, the blades are like this. The blades are like this. I'm speaking of a radial flow turbine. And we should be aware where exactly we are drawing the velocity triangles. It's not simply a triangle drawn to show that. And I do have the axis. Fine. So now suppose this is the axis of your machine. And what we try to do, say for example, I want to draw the velocity triangle. So I want to draw the velocity triangle. Say if this is my out one we call it as tip, and inner one we call it as hub. So you want to draw it actually, it's so difficult because it is not on the particular plane. I can't draw a triangle on your corresponding this thing. What we try to do actually, so we try to, if I try to have this, so blade itself is like this. Let me take this. Okay. If I have a blade like this, okay. What we try to do, there is some procedure called as circular projection. We try to project it on this plane. We'll take this axis. Suppose this is xy, this is x1, y1. We try to project it, and this is called as circular projection. In most of the radial flow machines, we do this, and this is the point. And we try to, on the circular projections, we try to put the corresponding velocity triangles, and this plane is called as your meridional plane. And it contains the meridional view. And this circular projection, what I'm trying to do, no, is for radial flow machines, and it contains all your the view what I'm going to get. It is a, see, we do have a meridional plane. The plane contains the, this is the plane x1 y1. So a meridional plane, it is a plane which contains the axis of the machine with the meridional view. How I got the meridional view? Using circular projection. Okay, on the meridional. This is for radial flow machine. So this is for a radial flow machine. A radial flow turbo machine. So this same rule can be applied for a compressor as well as for a turbine. So the rule will be the same. What will happen if it is for an axial flow machine? If it's an axial flow machine, what will happen? It looks something like this. So I do have the axis itself is like this, and I do have the axis like this, right? And I have the corresponding drum like this. This is the rotor drum, fine. And on this drum, I will be having the blades. You have the blades like this. You may be having the blades like this. On the drum, see, on this, see, I will be having, see, I'm showing two blades which is on the periphery. I may be having a blade like this also. If I look on the top, it will be like this. So on this, I'm just showing the side two. Now what happens in case of, if I have an axial flow machine, this is a particular diameter, mean diameter usually. Now for this case, what we try to do, we try to open it out. So we try to open this with this particular thing. The blades are opened. The circumference, I'm looking at the circumference. Then what will be the corresponding length? This will be pi times your d. Pi times your d. And what we do, we try to put the blades here. So we try to put the corresponding blades here. So what will be the blades? So if I am trying to put blades like this. So just I'm showing some 3 blades, and this is your leading edge, this is your trailing edge. The fluid will be coming like this. And look at this particular thing, they are parallel. That is because this represents the axis, axial flow. The flow is exactly parallel to this. So now when I come to the radial, that is radial flow machine, this is some axial flow machine. In axial flow machine, I will try to open the circumference. So I am going to open the circumference of this particular thing and along the mean diameter d, and I will try to put the profile of the blade over there. Fine. In case of a radial flow machine, I will try to do a circular projection, and I am going to have a meridional plane. So the meridional plane is what is created from the circular projection. Now what is the meridional plane here? So the meridional plane itself is your circumference. So circumference itself is your meridional plane. Meridional plane. So meridional plane. So where I am going to put the velocity triangles? So in case of a radial flow machine, I will show that. In case of a radial flow machine, so this is your tip. This is your hub. Okay. And I'm going to put only one blade. Fine. So this is from maybe steam turbine, whatever it may be. It's an outward flow turbine from outside to inside. So the fluid is coming. So that's what I try to do. So it's rotating in one more blade is here. Just I'm showing one or two blades. Fine. Now, where will be my triangle? The triangles has to be constructed at this particular point. Fine. So this is a turbine. I'll show the directions. I'll try to explain. Okay.